All right, what's up, everybody? It's episode 11. Today I'm ripping about coffee and its benefits and my top 3 tips when taking and using coffee. So you might have noticed there that I said taking and using, not drinking. So I do view coffee as more of a supplement than I do like a drink necessarily. And the reason for that is the caffeine content. The caffeine can really be a performance enhancer or a performance changer. And for that reason, I view it as supplemental to my diet, because it kind of alters it that way. Whereas something like water or soda isn't necessarily delivering some type of unique nutrient that coffee is. So that's kind of my perspective on it. So for those of us who love working out, coffee is maybe the best pre-workout that you can take. It's completely natural, obviously. It comes from a coffee bean, and the antioxidants in coffee are really fantastic for you. It's loaded with antioxidants, really good for your brain. There's good research out there that says that coffee has the potential to be neuroprotective, meaning the studies say that increase in coffee and green tea consumption is correlated with a reduction in Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, so neurodegenerative diseases. Coffee is correlated with a reduction in that. So it's not causal, but it is correlated, and that's something. Coffee's also been shown to increase your workout performance and your endurance. That mostly is just the caffeine. You could get the same effect with some type of pre-workout, but I think a lot of pre-workouts, there's a couple good ones, but I think a lot of them are loaded with, sucralose, which is an artificial sweetener, and a bunch of other ingredients that are kind of artificial and not very natural. And I think you can get the exact same effect with a good cup of coffee. All right, so I mentioned before my top 3 tips for taking and using coffee, and here they are. The first tip is waiting 90 to 120 minutes after you wake up to consume coffee. A lot of people, first thing they do in the morning, they wake up, they turn on the coffee pot, and they have a cup of coffee. And what happens is, so coffee fits into the brain's adenosine receptor. And so what happens is when you drink coffee immediately in the morning, that caffeine floods the brain's adenosine receptors, and the brain isn't able to use the existing adenosine and get rid of it. And so what happens is that adenosine kind of sits there waiting, and then when the caffeine is cleared out, the adenosine jumps in and fills those receptors. And that's what leads to that afternoon crash when you get really tired at 1, 2, 3 o'clock. That's what's happening basically, is your brain has cleared out all the caffeine from its adenosine receptors. The adenosine has been waiting there, and so now it floods into the brain and makes you tired. And the way to avoid that is just to wait 90 to 120 minutes after you wake up, so an hour and a half. So if you wake up at 7 a.m., don't drink your first cup of coffee until 8:30, and that way those adenosine receptors are clear, so the adenosine binds to the adenosine receptor, and your brain is able to clear that adenosine out, and then the caffeine comes in, so you get a much cleaner energy burn throughout the day. So that's the first tip. A side note with the caffeine timing is that I always cut off my caffeine consumption at least 10 hours before I go to bed. The reason being is that caffeine, when it sits in your brain, can actually reduce the amount of restorative sleep that you get. According to my Whoop, I average like 3 hours and 50 minutes of total restorative sleep, which is deep sleep combined with REM sleep. And having an increased amount of caffeine in your brain while you're trying to get into those phases of sleep, research shows that caffeine can reduce the amount of slow wave sleep and REM sleep that you get. So ideally, like for me, I go to bed at like 10 or 11. So ideally, I'm cutting all caffeine off at noon. And honestly, most days I'm done drinking coffee at like 11. So I've got, 11 or 12 hours before I'm going to bed, so my brain can clear out all the caffeine. So that's the first thing, caffeine timing. The second thing is a lot of people get jitters when they drink coffee or caffeine in general. And the best way to reduce that, at least in my experience, is number 1, to eat something before you drink coffee. Sometimes people drink coffee on an empty stomach. I do it a lot, and the jitters tend to be worse then. So eat something with your coffee. And then number 2, you can get an L-theanine supplement. L-theanine is an amino acid that's found in green tea. And if anybody has had green tea, you know that caffeine or that energy that you get from a green tea is a little bit cleaner, if you will. Not cleaner in terms of nutrients, but cleaner in terms of you don't get those jitters as much. And the reason is the L-theanine that's in the green tea. And so if you want to have the best of both worlds, because you like coffee better than green tea, like me, then grab a L-theanine supplement and take that when you drink your coffee, or you can just put the powder right into the coffee, and you get the best of both worlds. So that's the second thing. Eat something or add an L-theanine supplement or both. And the third coffee tip I want to share with you is what to add to your coffee and what not to add to your coffee. So a lot of people love putting creamer in their coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee creamer. but it does matter what kind of coffee creamer you're putting in there. So the Starbucks coffee creamer, or I can't remember the name of them, but the little coffee pods that you'll see, at restaurants, that's not actual cream. They're using artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, and they're using seed oils to make that coffee creamer. And basically, like, that's a whole other episode that I can get into, but the moral of the story is that it's not real cream, and you're kind of doing yourself a disservice by putting that in there. Here are the best alternatives. Number one, regular milk. Regular milk in coffee is fantastic. Milk has electrolytes, calcium, things that actually help hydrate you while you're drinking your coffee. So I'm a huge fan of putting milk in there. Whole milk is my favorite. You can put creatine in your coffee. I'm a big fan of that. Any way that you can get creatine in your diet is perfect. So put your creatine in your coffee. Okay, so milk, creatine. And honestly, my favorite thing to do right now is I've been messing around with this cafe mocha style drink where I make cold brew coffee and you can do it with hot coffee too, but I like it in cold brew. And I put chocolate protein powder and a little bit of milk in there. So I do like 8 ounces of cold brew, 2 scoops of chocolate protein powder, and then I fill the rest with milk. And then I have a automated whisk. I don't know what they're called. Like the little thing that spins and whips it up. And I put it in there and then I whip it up and it's delicious. It tastes like you bought it at a store and I'm a huge fan of it. And you can do the same thing with vanilla protein powder if you like the vanilla taste a little bit better, which I'll do sometimes, but I prefer the chocolate. And that's a great way to get extra protein in during the day, extra nutrients along with your coffee, and it tastes great. So those are my 3 coffee consumption tips. Number 1, know when to drink it, waiting at least an hour and a half, and then cutting it off 10 hours before you're gonna go to sleep. Number 2 is avoiding the jitters, so eat something and then add an L-theanine supplement. And the third thing to do is different things to add into it. My favorite is milk, creatine, protein. Chobani just came out with a new coffee creamer that looks really good. They use real cream, real ingredients. So if you like having a creamer on hand, but you don't want to use the Starbucks trash anymore, grab one of the Chobani ones. Those will be good. So that's all I got for you. It's already episode 11. Thanks for watching all the way through. If you did watch all the way through, I really appreciate you. And you should go follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and add me as a friend on Facebook. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.